Hey, it's Sandra. Welcome to another episode of Asexualise, my asexual life. This is a place to be for education about asexuality, all things asexual. I share my asexual life journey in order to help you in yours. So don't forget to subscribe and hit that bell icon right now. So in today's episode, we're going to be discussing, are movies to blame for sexual relationships and romantic relationships to be given priority over friendships? Is this something you thought about? Is this something you've pondered? Are you a person who's aromantic and fed up of hearing romantic stuff? Are you a person who's asexual and fed up of hearing how sexual relationships are the best relationships? If this sounds like you, stay tuned because I've got a cracking episode. First of all, if you don't know who I am, I'm Sandra Bellamy, best-selling author and publisher of this Asexual Perspectives book out on Amazon. And I've also published Fibromyalgia Self-Help Handbook. If you want to know how to manage your life to have less pain, more energy, and feel happier, get that book. Great, even if you don't have fibro. So go and check those out on Amazon. So let's crack on with tonight's show, or today, or this morning, wherever you are. So yes, a lot of people in the asexual community tend to be aromantic rather than romantic, or aromantic, as some people pronounce aromantic as aromantic, as in asexual. So someone who's aromantic or aromantic lacks romantic attraction, they're absent of it. Just like someone who's asexual is absent of sexual attraction. And as aromantics tend to be the majority of asexuals as opposed to romantic, then I come across quite a lot of aromantics in my own groups and in other people's groups. And some people who are aromantic get absolutely fed up of romantic relationships, just like sexual relationships, being put on a pedestal, as they call it. This is referred to in my Asexual Perspectives book, actually. And that, they get fed up of stuff like this. Equally, it's hard because asexuals in general get fed up of sex and sexual relationships being put on a pedestal. A lot of aromantics feel that they, that they have the importance of friendship in high regard, and that other people who aren't aromantic don't hold friendships in such high regard. So it gets very difficult for an aromantic asexual, for example, to have friends who aren't like them, because they tend to find that their friends who are in sexual relationships or romantic relationships prioritize their relationships, those relationships, over the friendship they have with that aromantic person. And this aromantic person can feel very lonely, very left out, very isolated, very cut off. They can feel like they've got a best friend, and then all of a sudden this best friend is taken away from them because they've got a romantic or sexual partner, and that the relationship they once had, this deep friendship bond, is not the same anymore. And they might even grow to resent that, and resent the fact of romance in general being, as they would put it, on a pedestal, held in such high regard. And I can understand why, because it's soul crushing, isn't it? If you've got a best friend who you've had for a number of years, and all of a sudden they get involved in a relationship, and whilst you might want to feel good for them and happy for them, and we always should try to be happy for our friends, if you feel that's completely encroached on your time with them, that they're not responding to your message as much anymore, that they're not interacting with you much anymore, and it's making you feel like an outsider with them, or someone who's much more distant from them, that can be very, very heartbreaking. And I think it's important to recognize this. It's very difficult for people who don't experience any romantic attraction whatsoever sometimes to understand why people would even want to have a romantic relationship. But if they're having their best friend taken away, if you like, by romance or bisexual attraction, then it's very, very much harder. It's like a real kick in the teeth for them. And I think this has to be recognized, and we have to have a greater degree of empathy, especially if you're not an aromantic. I'm not an aromantic asexual. I'm a hyperomantic. I'm the opposite. But it is difficult. I know aromantic asexuals, and it is very difficult for them. Now, this isn't the same case for every aromantic. Some aromantic asexuals, for example, are demi-romantic. So once a deep emotional bond has been formed, they then can develop romantic feelings and have a romantic relationship. Someone who's cupioromantic on the aromantic spectrum, for example, can experience zero romantic attraction, but they still desire a romantic relationship. So some aromantics as well, they still like watching romantic movies, or particularly like like reading romance books. I found this very bizarre when I first heard or read about it, should I say, in asexual groups. The amount of aromantics I came across that says they still like romantic fiction. They still love a good love story with romance in it. And I was quite shocked. I'm like, why would you like that if you're not interested in romance? But obviously, you can have romantic behavior without having romantic attraction, just like I can have sexual behavior sometimes with the way I like to kiss without having any sexual attraction whatsoever. So the behavior is not the same as the attraction. The action is not the same as attraction, although they can go hand in hand. So we have to understand that every aromantic person is different, every individual is different. And some people, even if they're not on the aromantic spectrum, they might just get absolutely fed up with romance if they're not too romantically inclined, or maybe they've had a heartbreak, maybe they've had a breakup, and they're just fed up of seeing romance on TV and it's driving them nuts. It's making them sad, right? One of the worst things you can do if you have a breakup is play love songs, but often we do because we feel in the mood for love that's kind of gone wrong, but we still play these love songs. I do it sometimes too, and then I notice what I'm doing. I'm like, this is not going to help you, Sandra. Get over someone that you have love feelings for, attraction for. It's just going to make it deeper and stronger. And sometimes I might go through a process of actually doing that, and it's kind of then you grieve, and then you think, what the hell am I doing? Let's take some action and let's forget about this because it's not good, right? So, how much do movies influence sexual and romantic relationships? Well, this depends on the individual and what they believe and personally think. I wasn't aware years ago, really, of the impact of movies, that, or the impact that movies had on people, shall I say. And this is in terms of sex, because I just don't like sex in movies, full stop. I don't really pay attention to those, and I try to avoid watching any movies these days with sex in them as much as possible. I've got a no sex movie playlist. If you haven't seen it and you're asexual and you hate sex as well, you hate nudity, go and watch that playlist because you're in for a treat. There's so many movies without sex, most of which are PG or certificate 12, I might add. So they're what kids would watch with their parents, but it's good, wholesome stuff, if you ask me. Of course, some of those might have romance in them still. So, sex in movies and romance in movies. How much do we think it affects relationships? Well, I, like I said, choose not to watch sex in movies, but there are so many people who are heterosexual, for example, that do watch sex in movies. And this can have an influence. Obviously, if they are watching pornography movies, this has a big influence. It can be I don't watch porn myself, but from my knowledge of what other people talk about, other dating coaches, then pornography can have a very negative, adverse effect on a romantic relationship, an intimate relationship. Most intimate relationships are referred to in these scenarios are heterosexual romantic relationships. And so it can have a huge impact, but it doesn't matter what sexuality you are. If your partner's watching porn, right, then if I guess it does matter in case you're asexual, because if you're not having sex with that person, then it wouldn't matter so much in the sense that they are getting sex somewhere else if you don't care about that. But it does affect the relationship because the amount of time they're spending in a world with a person who is just on the screen rather than being in the relationship and present for the relationship does have a detrimental effect. If you are off and you're doing something with someone else that is in kind of competition or contrast to your main relationship in this unhealthy way, then it can mean that you get disconnected from the person you're actually in a relationship with. And you can get, because you're not putting time, energy, and effort into thinking up ways that you can be loving towards each other. And if you are a person who does have sex, because some asexuals do, then it can make the person want sex more on their own, masturbation or sex. Well, there's AI stuff coming out now where you can have, I believe, sex with artificial intelligence beings. I don't know how advanced that is and how many people are doing that, but cyber sex, all this type of thing, right? So that can take away from the essence of your main relationship, the person you're meant to be with, because a person can't have a healthy relationship with you if they're not present for you and understanding your needs and each other's needs and having effective communication. Going and shutting yourself away in a room, having sex with someone else virtually or watching someone else have sex is not going to help your relationship. It's not going to help the communication and stuff like that. Obviously, some people who are highly heterosexual, who love sex and who enjoy watching porn together, might be very much of a different thinking to what I'm saying. So everyone has to use their own judgment at the end of the day where they think movies affect sexual relationships and romantic relationships, and where they think it has a big toll on friendship relationships with each other. But sex in movies does affect people in relationships. If you look at the research, if you go and Google it and find out, hello in chat, if you find out the research about it, pornography does affect relationships. I personally hate porn. I can't stand it. If I'm in a relationship with guys watching porn, I consider it cheating. So I make sure that I tell the person that majority of guys watch porn, so it'll be like a no-go. We can't be in a relationship at all, ever even consider it, because that's fine if they need their porn. That's up to them if they've got no self-control and discipline in that way. But that guy's not for me. So it does take self-control and discipline or disinterest in that type of thing to not get involved with it in the first place. So if we're talking about romantic relationships, how much do movies affect it? Well, I watch a lot of dating coaches and life coaches and things like that, and they say that a lot of movies really strongly influence people in relationships to do with romance particularly. So they see, just like porn gives really a lot of false idealization of women's bodies, like and false idolization of scenarios and stuff like that, because most of them are actors and actresses playing out roles, right? A lot of guys have unrealistic, if we're talking about hetero guys, a lot of guys have unrealistic expectations of that. But obviously you can get trans porn, you can get lesbian porn, all that type of thing, right? But this often influences people's relationships because they want to see what happened in the movie if they could do that in real life. But some people can act some of those stuff out in real life, obviously, and others it might not be good for the person they're with to act that stuff out. And if you're acting that stuff out, you're acting, you're not actually being your authentic self. You're putting on an act of something you saw and you're replicating it, right? So you've got to take all these factors into consideration. Now, from the research that I've done from the dating coaches, they're not asexual dating coaches, that are traditional heterosexual dating coaches and life coaches that I follow, there appears to be a link between romantic movies and people having unrealistic expectations in romantic relationships. And this is because I'll go to chat in a minute. This is because they have unrealistic expectations of how romance is supposed to be. So in a lot of romantic movies, for example, they'll go from the couple who are in question about are they going to get together or not. They'll go through a lot of trials and tribulations before they actually get together in a romantic relationship. And a lot of the time, not all the time these days, but a lot of the time, it will end where they get into a relationship against all odds. They've got into a relationship in the end, and you live happily ever after. But you never see what happens after that a lot of the time, unless they do sequels. And so a lot of the time, you have this idolization that, like, this perfect relationship, they don't show you the ins and outs of a relationship on a day-to-day basis. A lot of the time, they don't show you the struggles. They don't show you how it pans out in reality. They are showing you just a glimpse of a possible relationship that's worked out in a, some people would argue, an unrealistic or fantasy world, right? This is what people say. I'm not saying this is correct, but this is what a lot of coaches say, that people are looking for things that are unrealistic in romantic relationships. And in a lot of romantic relationships, people are not held accountable for their actions. If someone lies in a film, right, it's always sort of like, oh, well, I caused the lying by my behavior, so I'm in the wrong. There's no excuse for lying. This teaches people wrong things in relationships, right? It teaches that, oh, if someone can lie, but they can still get the girl in the end, then that's okay because he's the hero. He's come to our rescue. And all this is very damaging. So this can have a huge damaging effect on relationships in general. And romantic and sexual relationships still in general play the larger part of movies, so they are focused a lot more in movies than friendships. So therefore people could argue that it's detrimental to friendships in the sense that sexual relationships and romantic relationships are put usually above friendships in order of importance, because this is what's shown most in movies and most on TV as well. um, Apache, thank you for being in chat tonight. Um, so I agree with you. They will also require more and more intense scenes, and the millionaire sex won't be exciting for them. Thank you for that. Yes, I don't personally watch porn, but I do understand where you're coming from. That is true. I have heard that's true. So the more people watch porn, the more they want to try more riskier behaviors out, which could end up actually killing someone. I'm talking about risky behaviors where they're handcuffing someone or even holding someone's throat and stuff like this. I have read and done research that has led me to coming across this type of information. Sadomasochism, for example, BDSM stuff, where I don't watch the news, but occasionally I get stuff in my news feed, and I remember one article came up where this guy had sex with this girl in this room, and he's like, oh, she wanted it, and it was BDSM stuff, so he did something, and basically he killed her because he grabbed hold of her neck, and he's like, oh, well, we were doing BDSM stuff, so that was okay. He murdered her, basically, and it's just like, I mean, did he really believe that, or was he just saying it? But it's disgusting, right? So I personally am not into BDSM. I personally do not want anything to do with it. I do not personally. This is my personal opinion, because I've got a friend who's into some BDSM stuff, so I still have people that I know that I'm close to that do the things I don't like to do, right? So I can be. I understand there's different perspectives on this, but I personally don't like pain in that way. I have a pain condition, fibromyalgia, and I have enough pain in my body without having that type of pain, right? I don't want that pain in my life, right? And I believe you can be so loving, so caring, so sensual without any of that stuff, which is what I've done in my past relationships. I have never ever been asked by my heterosexual exes, because I was in sexual relationships in the past, to do any BDSM stuff whatsoever. It would never have crossed my mind, and it never seemed to have crossed their mind, because I was never expected to do or asked to do anything like that. Having said this, my last long-term ex was very sexual guy, and I think he probably did watch porn, not while I was with him, but he liked watching sex and movies and stuff like that, and used to make up excuses like, oh, I can't watch the movie without watching those scenes as well because it'll spoil the movie. Whereas I'm not interested in sex, so I'm like, let's fast forward this, if you're going to watch this. I was really uncomfortable. I don't find it pleasurable to sit with he was my boyfriend at the time, he's not now, to sit next to a guy who's meant to be my boyfriend, sat watching other women have sex. Is disgusting. Liam, sweetheart Sandra, always found BDSM interesting, never interested. Always found BDSM interesting, never interested in it. Oh, right, okay. I mean, like, some people do like BDSM stuff, some people just like parts of it. I'm glad you're honest about that, because, like I said, I have a friend who does like some of that, who has participated in some of that. It's not what I like. I couldn't do that. I have been asked by guys before different guys, if a relationship would be possible with me and them, would I do X, Y, and Z? And I'm like, no. And I have a lot of guys who would like me to dominate them, but I just don't think I could do it. Like, even without like hurting them. I am not a submissive girl. So I definitely don't want a dominant guy. If I see a guy on dating sites that say they're dominant, I'm just like, that's not for me, because I'm not submissive, and I would rather have a guy who was a bit submissive, a little bit submissive, than dominant any day. But I just don't think I could dominate because I don't like controlling people, and it's very much a control thing, you know? I know there's a lot of to BDSM, and some people are like, well, you know, if you're a dominant person, you're like the leader and your job is to, you know, protect the person. But I still like a guy to be a traditional guy to a certain extent, as in the sense I like him to protect me in my heart and stuff like that. I like him to be somewhat protective, so I still like him to have some qualities like that, you know? So, yeah, but from what I understand, that porn specifically makes a lot of people's relationships very unrealistic, and it it very much, like, glorifies women's bodies in terms of, like, how much sex you can get out of them and use them as a piece of meat and stuff. I mean, I don't follow that, but I've had people even in my inbox, because people seem to think asexual means I really want sex and I'm very sexual, which I'm not. And I've had guys and people send stuff in my inbox that's disgusting of porn, you know, where I open it because I don't know what it is. I think it's just someone wanting to friend request me because I've got a lot of business people connected to me on Facebook and from various groups, and someone sends me a message and it's not until I click through it and see it, and it's like a guy with his in her woman, but she's not looking happy a lot of the time. She's looking like really like she's not enjoying that at all, and it's just disgusting. Also, one of the business guys I'm connected to, he used to have, you know, he kept getting stuff on his feed. I said, "Do you realize that's from your feed? It's not very good for you." And he's like, "Oh no, thanks for telling me that." And then some of his friends have got that, where Chinese girls are like doing porn stuff. It's disgusting. And so I think that porn does influence people, definitely. I think, you know, especially when people are not talking to the person in their actual relationship, they're busy, you know, like watching porn by themselves and interacting with people on TV and fake stuff, you know. I thought women like to be dominated in certain months and other months, and so much something to do with the hormones, I think. Not me. No, I'm not into hormone stuff. I can't be doing with it. I don't like when someone brought up, like, I'm studying public speaking. I don't know if you knew that. I'm speaking at the Being Become Summit. Make sure you get a free ticket that on the 14th of December, 2023 we're in now, so it's coming up soon. And there was a person who was looking for speakers, because I'm in this experts bureau as well, Blue Talks Experts Bureau. So this person was saying that they want looking for speakers to do with hormones, and immediately I'm turned off by that. I don't go by any hormonal stuff. I don't even think like that, you know. I think you in life you are led by what you believe, and I don't think I'm led. Well, I'm not saying I'm never led by my hormones. Like years ago, I was actually on the pill because I was in sexual relationships, heterosexual relationships, and I use that as contraception. And those hormones play weird stuff with a woman's body. I tell you, it's really weird shit. Excuse my language. I'm so glad to be off that. I'm so glad that I found out I'm asexual. Don't have sex anymore. Very sex repulsed for myself personally these days. I don't care if other people have sex. They enjoy it, like it, want it, need it, and it's all consensual and good, and everyone's happy. But I don't want that for myself. So hormones can affect things. I know, like obviously they do, but I don't think like that in terms of it affecting me. I think it does it. I think if a woman is on the pill though, which obviously that can change things with periods and stuff like that, I think then it can maybe change their behavior and what they want and like, because the pill's supposed to actually suppress, I think, sexual feelings and stuff, or some do, because of it is hormones. So obviously they can change the body, but I personally don't like to be dominated. What I like, I don't like to be dominated by a guy, but I can be, I do like a guy to be strong in some ways as well. You know, like I don't like him to be a mummy's boy. I like him to know his own mind. I like him to protect me. I like him to stick up for my relationship with him to other people. So I like a good balance of feminine, masculine, I think, in a guy. Like, for example, I like a guy who does housework, cooking, cleaning, because I hate those type of things. I'm not a girl who likes doing that type of thing, and I'd rather build a website, blog, vlog, be on here, do work, right? So, yeah, my best friend came over recently to help me because I've injured my foot really badly. You might have seen the glass that it broke on, and my best friend, he did all my housework for me yesterday because he didn't have to. He just volunteered to do it because he knew that I hadn't done it for a while because I got fibromyalgia, so it's one of my least favorite things to do, and it hurts me physically to stand up even doing the washing up. It's a really bad thing. So he did all my housework for me, and I was like doing my work on the bed on the laptop here while he was doing that. And I'm just thinking, really, I could do with a guy who's domesticated and who really loves doing this housework in a romantic relationship. We're not suitable for a romantic relationship, but it would be good to have someone like that. So if a guy has some feminine traits, I like a guy who writes me poetry as well and stuff like that. So I like him to have some feminine qualities, and a guy who can be led by me with the housework and stuff like that. For example, I just tell him what I need and then he's like gets on with it. Like my best friend is my best friend, right? But he does amazing. He's great at housework. I don't feel a burden to him at all, which is really nice. He does it because he likes it and he likes helping me. And he doesn't complain at all about it. He'll just say, "Tell me what I want's doing, and I'll do it. Just give me the orders," And he's like that, and I work really well with him because I like leading, and it's just a lot easier for me to tell him how I want stuff done. And so it's a shame there's not more movies like with this type of stuff in it. Really, it'd be really good. More domesticated goddess men, Um, so personally for me, I don't like being dominated, but I don't mind guys in clubs. The right guys come in to take the moves to kiss me. I like that. I don't want to make the first moves with kissing a guy. I like him to do that. So I still like some male traits and some male stuff. But years ago, like a guy used to put me up against the wall to kiss me. I don't want that anymore. I'm quite happy if he wants to go against the wall with me kissing him, which is a more dominant position. If I'm kissing an actual guy, so as I'm in a relationship, which I haven't been in a relationship for years, but say I was, I'm happy to be on top kissing the guy and him to be underneath me. I don't want sex with him though, but I'm happy to be on top more than on the bottom kissing him. So I'm kind of like in a more dominant position in that way. But I don't want to be a dominatrix. But some guys come on dating sites and like, oh, I'm looking for a dominatrix, and they seem to think that I would make a good one. I think, and that's probably because I write what I like in my profile. I'm very specific. Like, this is what I want. I know what I want. Like, don't give me any rubbish. So I think I've got an element maybe that people see as a dominatrix type of person, but I actually don't think I could do it because I can't control people. I don't like it. And I like leading, but in BDSM it's too domineering, I think, for me. Too much domination. And usually you're kind of like playing the male role in a dominatrix role rather than a female, like being yourself. I like being myself. I love kissing, but I don't like fetishes, so I'm not sure if I could even handle a guy who get caught a kissing fetish, because I like kissing just because it's amazing and it's great feeling. But if I had a guy, it's possible if he had a kissing fetish, it would be okay. But I don't like the word fetish. It makes me not think of good stuff. So personally, for me, the language is very important. So and I don't know anyone else who's a hyper kisser. I've come across some other people, a few that are hyper romantics, but not a hyper kisser. I don't know anyone that can kiss up to 4 hours and not get bored and it just be like really exciting still. Great. Plus the rest, and so yeah, it's kind of really hard. There's a lot of hypersexuals out there, but not hyper kissers as far as I know. People who are just hyper kissers. So yeah, that's quite difficult. So in terms of romantic movies, like how much do they influence like relationships? Like I was saying earlier, there's a lot of dating coaches, traditional dating coaches, for example, who say that romantic relationships often give people unrealistic expectations. And then a lot of these people go on dating sites and they have unrealistic expectations of what happens. And I think there's not enough romantic movies out there that are showing how to have healthy romantic relationships. A lot of them still show the girls in distress and the guy, like the guy shows up and saves her in the end, that type of thing. And there's still a degree of a lack of real life stuff being tackled in a lot of movies. I mean, if a guy lies to me, that's it. I can't trust him anymore. But the amount of teenage movies where a guy has lied to his girl, but she's forgiven him is just incredible. Incredible as in there's so much of it. The more I watch romantic movies, it's like I do like the romantic ending of them coming together. But I always think, well, if that was in real life, I couldn't be with that guy because he's lied to me. And once he's lied to me, once he can lie to me again. And I can never ever trust him. But that's not what happens in romantic movies. the woman usually forgives the guy in the end because he charms her, I guess, and he makes out that he's the right guy for her, and she blames herself because it's like, oh, well, the guy's like, well, I couldn't talk to you, or she accuses him of something, which may or may not be wrong, right or wrong, but then, you know, he in the end persuades, you know, he in the end does love her apparently, and so she decides like it's her fault because she said something to him that stopped him being honest. Right? No one can stop someone being honest. It's up to them whether they're honest or not. One lie is a lie as far as I'm concerned, and it's a betrayal. And I think that's why probably a lot of people in real life aren't that honest. I'm one of the most honest people I know. I've even been told this by a lot of like people who've come across me as a friend. They're like, you're the most honest person I've ever met in my life because I don't lie. I make it my thing. I just can't lie. I don't. Why would I want to lie? If people don't like me the way I am, that's okay. I don't care. They're free to move on. There's tons of other channels out there. There's tons of other people. If they don't like me, it's okay, right? I'm not here to be liked by everyone in life. That's not how life rolls. I'm going to have to move my legs because I've got an injury and it's causing me discomfort. Sorry. I'm trying not to put too much pressure on it. But yeah, so it's, you know, I think movies are very difficult, but I have to say I am a hyper romantic. And there is one thing that's probably very different about me, and that is I believe I can make a lot of movie scenes a reality. I don't think of romantic movies as fantasies. I personally don't have fantasy in my vocabulary for me. I don't believe I have any fantasies. I don't believe in fantasies for me personally. I know other people have them, but I don't believe that because I believe anything I see in movies that I like, that I want to do, I can make a reality. And I do often when I'm, you know, out clubbing, for example, with guys, like, well, I'm dancing on my own, guys, come along. If a guy who I think is really good looking, who approaches me to dance and wants to kiss me, I pretty much can tell when they do, then to me, some of those moments are just like scenes out of a movie that I'm having in real life, maybe only for a few hours, but it's still that real life thing that's happening that people see in movies. And to me, that's just incredible and exciting. And I love that. So for me, when people see romantic movies, some people have said, someone said in chat, I have a person who comes regularly in chat, Yuli, who's lovely, by the way, really nice person. She's a musician, so she's great. And she said about, oh, a lot of people know that romantic movies are fantasy, right? In reality. But for me personally, my brain doesn't think like that, probably because I'm a hyper romantic. It knows that it's not real, but I don't think there's anything in a movie that couldn't come true usually. Because especially with AI, artificial intelligence, most of the sci-fi movies can come true. Anything, basically, anything that's fiction could become fact, in my opinion, because it wouldn't exist in the reality of fiction if it didn't actually exist in a space and time somewhere and someone created it, even if they're creating it in a falsely way, if you know what I mean, with camera tricks and stuff. I don't personally believe, which is very dangerous thing to think, that in terms of like, I don't really believe there's much in movies that couldn't come true. Because I believe someone had to think it in their mind to create it. If you believe in law of attraction and stuff like that and manifestation, it gets quite scary because if you think of the amount of movies that's made and put out into the world and how much that could be drawing those things in to become a reality. If it's like a horror movie, supernatural murder movie, all this type of thing, just thinking the amount of stuff that could go on in reality, which often does happen in reality. And then people are wondering why it happens in reality because someone dreamt it up for dramatic purposes, then it becomes a reality, right? Because they create this thing that's happening and someone has to concoct it. Minds have to get together to produce the film. So all this energy is going out into the world. So it can get quite scary to think about stuff like that. I don't know if other people think that deeply about things, but I do. And so, you know, with me, I'm very careful about what I put in my mind. I limit the amount of things and what I watch in my mind, you know. I do sometimes watch some movies that do have some murder scenes in them. So I'm not saying I don't ever watch stuff like that. But obviously, you know, you've got to be careful what you put into your mind. And you've got, you know, a lot of the time I watch romantic movies, kids movies, all this type of thing. So you got to be limit your time with certain other things because they can really badly affect your head. So I do think movies do influence society. I do think movies influence people, because I think that's the whole point of movies, is to give people ideas, is whether it's an idea for a creative thing. So I can get a lot of creative ideas from seeing things. You know what I mean? Like, if you see things in movies and you're a writer, you can end up seeing stuff, and then it can lead on to other thoughts, which can then create your own book and your own reality. So a lot of movies have got some truth about them, usually, even if they're fiction, right? So we need to understand that there are some things about movies that do influence us, and sexual relationships and romantic relationships are still featured a lot more prominently in movies than friendships being the main thing, the be all and end all of the movie, if you know what I mean. So I do think that movies influence sexual and romantic relationships to be given more priority than friendships to a certain extent. I do believe it's up to the person individually where they decide whether romantic and sexual relationships are more important than friendship. Now, years ago, I have to be honest with you, before I found out I'm asexual, before I became much more awakened to things and much more experienced and knowledgeable and wise, I did used to hold romantic relationships in high regard. And the reason I did, which was, I know, which is not true now, is because I thought the person you're in a romantic relationship will always be there for you, whereas friends will come and go. Now I think the complete opposite. I think friends, true friends, right, are more likely to be there for you throughout the years than someone in a romantic relationship. So I'm not sure if that's actually true, you know, but I tend, for me personally, because of my experience over the last number of years, I tend to hold friendships very much in high regard. However, having said that, I've had three people that I was meant to be close to, three friends that aren't my friends anymore in this year alone leave my life. Well, one's not completely left my life. They are still connected to me, but they don't really talk to me anymore. Right. So, and you know, two of them really let me down in the end, and it wasn't good. So so from that point of view, you could argue that if I'd had a romantic relationship at the time, then that would have been more important, right? But I'd still have my best friend, I have a close friend, as well as other friends. So, I still think that friendship, and I think really friendship and romantic relationships are important equally in different ways if you've got someone that you're in a romantic relationship with. I don't think that a friendship or romantic relationship really should be better than the other if you've got both, right? It depends where you're at in your life, because I think if you are in a romantic relationship, you have to prioritize the person you're in a relationship with to a lot of extent, but you still should make sure you have priority time with your friends as well, particularly your close friends. You can't get into a romantic relationship, then disregard your close friends. Your friends have to understand, though, and I have to understand that if someone who I know is a close friend of mine gets into a relationship, of course that other relationship is going to be a priority to them. I'm going to be able to see them less. I'm going to be spending less time with them because they only have so many hours in the day. They only have so much energy in their life. They only have so many days in the week that if they then got another person in their life, they have to give up some time from somewhere else to spend with that person. And that means either giving up time they spend on their own, giving up time they spend with their family or their friends or hobby or something. They have to allocate some time to that person. So even though I love my friends dearly, I have to let them go a little bit and give them a bit of leeway, in the sense if they get into a romantic relationship, that relationship is going to take more of their time up. Right. I think I personally find it harder nowadays if that person has a new friend come along and they've suddenly whipped loads of time off between me and them with their new friend. I think it's good they've got additional friends or other friends, but if it's at the expense of my friendship with them when I've been friends with them for years, then I do personally find that more difficult. That's a personal opinion and feeling. But if you've got a really close friend in the first place, then I think if they're a good friend, they would obviously talk to you about this, or you talk about it beforehand. I'm well aware with my bestest friend that if they ever did get into a relationship, then obviously they're going to be spending a bit less time with me, because they'll have their primary partner in a relationship with them. But I know we'll always be best friends. I'm pretty certain of that, because we've been through a lot of difficulties together. And, we're getting stronger and stronger day by day, week by week, month by month, year by year. So I think, that that's going to be a friendship that lasts hopefully forever would be great. That's what we're planning for anyway. So that's good, but I do hold friendships a lot more in higher regard than I used to. And for me personally, I think it's very difficult when people prioritize sexual relationships, sex in relationships. So I'm on Badoo dating site, on Facebook dating as well. And, the guys on there, they don't really want a relationship with anyone who's not going to have sex with them. They don't understand how important it is to build friendship anyway. Like, regardless of what type of relationship you're having, friendship should always be the foundation of any healthy relationship, where it's a friendship or a romantic relationship or a sexual relationship. If you are not best friends with the person, you're not deep friends, you don't really care about them on that fundamental deep level, then you'll have much more of a superficial relationship, and you're less likely to want to make the other person happy because you haven't got that emotional investment in the person like you have if they're a friend of yours. You haven't got that caringness, that bestest friendship feeling that you need to maintain and sustain. If you meet someone who's a stranger you've only known 3 months and you're not even proper friends with them, you're going to have much less drive and ambition and pull towards maintaining, sustaining the relationship and making it priority than you are over your friends, or alongside your friends that you've known for years. You're much less likely to value it as much, to want to help the person as much, to care about them as much, right? Because it all takes time. Whereas, say you had a friendship with someone for a couple of years and then you got into a relationship with that person, you're much more likely to make it work because you don't want to lose the friendship element, and you really care about them already as it is. You really have strong, like, friendship love feelings for them. You really consider them as an essential and important aspect of your life. So I think you have to bear that in mind. And as a hyper romantic, like I said, I don't have any platonic attraction. Actually, I'm not sure if I said that in this video, but I always say that I'm an asexual. That's quite rare. I don't experience any platonic attraction whatsoever. So the majority of my friends, if they're guys, because I'm only attracted to guys, I get some romantic feelings for, or some type of attraction, aesthetic attraction, romantic attraction, spiritual attraction. A lot of the time it's usually some romantic feelings. And this is very difficult. If it's just a little bit of romance, I can handle it. It's no problem. The friendship far outweighs the romantic feelings. But if it is more than is normal, and I keep consistently thinking about a relationship with that person, it does make it harder. But if the friendship feelings are just so much more stronger, then again, it's doable. So I think you have to, like, weigh up the pros and cons for you if you are at all that type of person who can't have a platonic relationship with someone, right? So platonic relationships, platonic friendships, if you like, are ones where you don't usually want, have romantic feelings for that person. This is what I see as a platonic friendship, is people who just want to be friends with each other. They don't have romantic feelings and such. But the majority of people in friendships, one of them has some type of feeling more for the other. So just because you feel platonic friendship for this person you're in a platonic friendship with, doesn't mean to say they're actually feeling a platonic friendship feelings back for you. They could feel romantic attraction for you, even if you're in a platonic relationship with them, or platonic friendship, shall I say. They could feel more than that. So just because you feel just friendship for someone doesn't mean to say they do. So don't ever think that's the case, right? And if you do watch a lot of movies, you will notice that even in movies, there's not a lot of people in movies that are just friends. There's usually some sexual attraction element, or some romantic attraction element, or aesthetic attraction element. There's some element usually of attraction there. It's very difficult for you to watch a movie that has zero attraction whatsoever in it, right? But I don't experience platonic attraction at all, and I can get feelings very quickly. So it makes having friendships with anyone really difficult because mostly I'm friends with guys, not with women. And I'm not used to being close to women. So if any woman said something that I could consider a possible attraction towards me, some women do get attracted to me, by the way, because I'm on an asexual dating site. And so far, a woman's like me on there, and she keeps keeping her like on there when I'm not interested in women. So if I get any inkling that a woman might be attracted to me, maybe she just likes me as a friend, then it makes me feel uncomfortable, actually, because I'm not used to that. It feels weird. Even though they might be a really nice person, I don't know if they're attracted to me or not, romantically, for example, or aesthetically, I don't know. So it makes it really difficult for me because I don't want like a romantic or aesthetic attraction connection with another woman, you know? So it's very difficult. But I do think that movies can influence people. I think people get ideas from movies. I think everyone's environment influences them. That's the people directly in the environment, in the rooms with them, the items that they have surrounding them. I recently watched a talk show, and this person interviewed like a psychologist. I think they were a type of doctor that specializes in like psychology, and they were saying that your environment can impact your age as well, so that if you have young items around, like young things around in your room, around the house, you're more likely to be young. And I totally agree with this. It's totally true, because I'm a lot younger than my birth certificate age, and I have cuddly toys all around my room, sparkly things, Disney throws, etc. So it's just like a teenager's bedroom, my room, and it keeps me really young and I love it. So, you've got to understand that your environment does affect you, and your environment is to do with what you put in your mind, what you consume, verbally, what you consume visually, to do with movies and stuff. It all influences and impacts you, because most movies have some sort of emotional effect on you. If they didn't, they wouldn't be producing these movies. Movies are meant to emotionally move you from one place to another and take you on a whirlwind and roller coaster ride, so that you are kind of addicted to that feeling and you want to know more. And, that's what it does to you on purpose, so that you want to watch more movies. So I think if you believe that movies don't influence you whatsoever in relationships and life, I think that's actually not true, because I think everything has an impact on you. Everything conditions you. It just depends what you choose to be conditioned by. Does that mean to say you can watch something and you'll always be influenced by it in some way? Well, that's up to you to decide that. But I think anything you watch, you can be influenced by, and probably are in some way. Even if it's just a little amount, it's going to affect you for a slight time, because cause and effect, action, reaction. For everything that goes on in your life, there's usually a counterpart to it. Black and white, this type of thing. Good and bad. Positive, negative. So I think if you look at it logically like that, then yes, movies are going to influence you and other people in some ways. And if you see something time and time again, the more something's repeated to you, this is a sales tactic as well, the more something's repeated to you, the more you become familiar with it, the more you believe it's right for you, and the more you want it, usually. Right? There's a tactic in sales, even in product sales, where it's called like touching the customer. This doesn't mean physically you have to go around touching your customers. It means that the more time that you come into contact with your customers through like newsletter or a video or a book or in person meetup or a convention, a workshop, any of these things, the more that you come into contact with the person and vice versa, the more you influence that person. So a lot of people in different companies, they want to sell a product, but they can't sell it straight away because that person has not had enough exposure to them. So that's why you see adverts on YouTube time and time again repeating the same thing to you, because they believe they believe that you're their target market, and the more they repeatedly get in your mind through the repetition of their adverts, the more likely you are to be influenced to buy their product or service. And it does work a lot of the time. because you become under the influence of it. So you're actually being conditioned all the time, but what you choose to be conditioned by is up to you. And obviously, if you haven't got ad blocker on YouTube, which I personally don't have, then you're going to keep getting these adverts. They're going to keep influencing your mind and brain. Sometimes it might be a good influence, and sometimes it might be an awful influence, really bad. But then you can get influenced just by one advert. You know, some people just do go for it. Most don't, but some people do, especially if it's something you need. Then you're like, oh, why wait around? That's what I need. So I'm going to grab it now. And a lot of the time, if you didn't already know, in marketing, for example, they do something called putting a pixel on your communication. So every time you go somewhere, they'll put like a little pixel, a little bit of code information to say this is what you looked at. And there's voice recognition now. So if you go on Facebook and you end up talking to someone in a message, you can end up seeing adverts for the thing you talked about when you were talking to that person, and you can see adverts for it. So let me go and explain that again, because I don't think I explained it very well. If you're in a private message on Facebook, you might notice afterwards that you haven't spoken to anyone outside that private message, or you might just have texted that person in a private message, and then you might see ads for some of the words or content in that message, whether that's a text message or verbal message, because they are putting like a tracker on that. And so it's got voice recognition on it, so that you can then end up seeing adverts of the things you're talking about or texting. But sometimes it's spooky because you can think something in your head and then it appears and you're like, what the heck? So, movies do have a big influence on people. Ads have a big influence on people. Movies are sometimes the biggest ads that you can get, right? So what do you do with this information? You have to decide for yourself what you want to be influenced by, what you want to be conditioned by. And you have to decide for yourself, when you're a bit more sober and you're not addicted to this type of stuff, ideally, what works best for you. Like, are you wanting to put a sexual relationship before your other relationships, or romantic relationships before other relationships? Or are you of the opinion now that friendships should be held in high regard, because friendships can last for years, whereas romantic people can come and go because they don't know you as well, right? So you have to watch all this type of thing, and media definitely influences people, because if it didn't, it wouldn't be called the media. It wouldn't exist, right? But I'm just glad that there's more media now. There's more YouTube channels and things for asexuals, because the more we get the message out of asexuality and we normalize it, the more that people are going to be understanding and believing that asexuality is very real and accepting of us. So media can work in your favor as well, because if you're a person who wants to get your voice heard, you can get it out in a bigger way, bigger than you've ever been able to. So there are actual benefits to the media as well, to movies and stuff like that. There are some asexual movies that do come out. They tend to be independent and go to film festivals and stuff like that. So more and more of those are starting to pop up. They're not very many, but they do. So I think this is a really good thing. We could do with more things like that. We could do with more asexual characters in movies. And I personally am romantic anyway, whether I watch movies or not. But I don't believe that anything that's in romantic movies couldn't come true in real life. So for me, they're not a fantasy. They are something that I can make a reality. And in my Diary Confessions of a Hyper-Romantic Asexual book that I've still got to finish editing, I've finished it in draft form now. I started editing, but I'm doing stuff for the summit at the moment. You will notice that I talk about things, because I've started my second book about this now, Diary Confessions of a Hyper-Romantic Asexual, and you will notice that I do believe dreams can become a reality, but I also believe that scenes from movies can become a reality. Obviously, a scene is a scene. It's not your whole life. So just because I have a scene that's romantic in real life with a guy doesn't mean to say that guy's meant to be with me forever in a romantic relationship. Usually it means he's not. It's just like a scene out of a movie. But I think those are the precious moments that we can treasure in life. Sometimes we don't have to be in a relationship with someone to just enjoy a perfect beautiful moment with that person, or a movie scene moment with that person, sometimes that can be the actual beauty, you know? It's hard as a person who does get attached sometimes to be able to do that. But the guy, for example, who I kissed in Oxford, who kissed me, I should say, in Oxford nightclub when I was a speaker at the no, I was going to say we're a speaker at the UK Asexual conference, but that was of 2018 and I didn't get any kisses then. Actually, I did meet a foreign guy on the tube, and I did like him a lot, but I never gave him my number. Anyway, going back to when I was a speaker for Blue Talks at Oxford Uni, and I went out clubbing after my talk that night on my own. There was an Indian guy there who kissed me, and not till the very end because I wouldn't let him for a long time. And it was really blissed, you know, but I don't miss him. I'm happy that we're not together seeing each other anymore, which is different for me because usually I would miss the guy. I would be like, oh my gosh. I'm talking about this in my Diary Confessions of a Hyper Romantic Asexual book, by the way. So that's something different for me because usually I do get attached in some ways. But it was nice because I had like a movie scene with him. And sometimes it's good to be able to just experience that in life, enjoy that for what it was, and then move on and not worry about it anymore. That's been something I have never been able to do till recently. So I'm not saying I can do it every time or many times, but one time is good. So I think, you know, recreating things like not intentionally. I never set out to like that to happen. Although I did think I wouldn't mind kissing an Indian guy tonight, and then one appeared because it's just like out of a movie. And my life is like out of a movie. Maybe that's why I believe a lot of movies can come true and have a degree of truth about them. And there's nothing that I like in movies that can come true. I don't want to deal with the stuff or know about the stuff I don't like, right? But that's why I believe that. But like, you know, when I was in Oxford nightclub, I went on my own, and the one guy that came after me was Indian in his 20s. Like, you know what I mean? Like, how does that happen when I like Indian guys in their 20s and he's the one? I was upstairs clubbing, and apparently he told me later that he'd been watching me up there. I never saw him up there. Then he was downstairs and he was in the corner. I didn't know at that time. He wasn't confirmed as Indian at that time till later when he came to dance with me. But I thought he was like on his own in the corner, and I saw him looking at me and I smiled, right? And then it wasn't until like 3/4 of the night later when he came with his friend. I thought he was on his own in front of me and started to dance with me, then started to hold my hand and then wanted to kiss me. But I didn't kiss him till the very end. But what I'm saying is that was like out of a movie scene, right? And it was the type of guy I wanted to kiss, right? He was gorgeous. I mean, aesthetically gorgeous, but that was like out of a movie scene, you know? So movie scenes can come true in reality. And for someone who's a hyper romantic like me, that's kind of like part of what I love about my life. It's really exciting. It's like I get to live movie moments like in my life that other people can't even get to experience because people kind of are not as adventurous as me. They worry about what people think. They can't be their true authentic selves. Whereas I'm experiencing movie magic moments, you know? And that's just bliss for me. I love it. So although it can be heartbreaking as well. So I do think that movies do influence relationships and the way things happen. And I do think that movies can influence people to think that sexual relationships and romantic relationships are the main relationships because that's what's mostly shown. And I think if you're exposed to something more than other things and that's how it becomes familiar to you, then you're more likely to understand that as what it should be, what life should be like. So basically, the thing is, the more you expose yourself to something, the more you tend to go with it or believe it. The least exposure you have to something, the more likely you are to be scared of it, afraid of it, or not want it in your life, or not need it in your life, or not be interested in it. Right? So if you're a person who's always grown up with friends being very prominent in your life, then you'll be more geared towards putting friendships in high regard because that's what you're used to. That's what you like. That's what feel comfortable to you. If you grew up not having any friends or barely any friends, then you're more likely to hold romantic relationships and sexual relationships in high regard because they're more familiar to you. So it depends again on what background you come from, how you've grown up, what relationships you've had so far, as to how you hold those types of relationships in regard, where it's high regard or less importance regard. But I have to say that having strong friendships, really close friendships, is great for asexuals, particularly those who can't have sex, don't want it, don't need it, don't like it. And those asexuals who are aromantic, for example, who don't even want relationships. Or if you do, it's more platonic relationships that you want, or platonic friendships, then, friendship's going to be a lot more better for you. Because if I'm, which I am, I'm a hyper-romantic asexual, but I don't like sex personally. I'm sex repulsed asexual. That makes finding a relationship really difficult. But if I've got really close friendships, that makes my life so much better. Because yes, I'm single. I might be single forever. But if I've got friends, deep committed friends that are close to me, then it makes me feel not alone, and that I've got a great, strong foundation of friendship for support there, and acknowledgement of being in life, and it provides some companionship, some compassion, empathy. It provides a lot of good nutrients, friendship nutrients. And if you're going to be on your own forever, which might happen to me, which is okay, or for me, if it might be in my favor, then it's important to have a strong foundation of friendship, because then you don't need so much the relationship, a romantic relationship. With me personally, because I am super romantic, I do still need to get my romantic needs met. I still have kissing needs. I still have needs of sensuality, where I want to feel like I'm stroking the guy's hair, feel like I'm holding his hand, feel like I'm cuddling him and being warm with him, And the only way I can personally get that outside of a relationship is if I allow a guy in a club to do those type of things with me, because I prefer it in public, because it's a lot more safer, really. You start doing that thing down back alleys and in your flat, and then they could do stuff to you that's not good. It's better to do in public with people around, security guards there. And so, if they do something that you don't want, you can just tell them to go, basically, which I have done before, told guys that I'm not interested and moved myself, But if you get yourself into tight situations which are private and secret, then they can be doing all sorts of stuff, and you've got no one there to help or support you. So I think, you've got to look after yourself, protect yourself, only allow what you want to happen to you, and the rest, you say no to and don't allow it. So I think it's important to recognize that your difference is your beauty, and that it's okay to have your own needs, wants, and desires, whatever that is, whether it's friendship, sexual, romantic, everyone is different, and it's up to you which you hold in highest regard. But I would definitely say to double think about friendships, right? One is, you shouldn't just have friends as your priority completely. If you want a romantic relationship, you have to understand that you have to prioritize your romantic relationship as well. You can't just ditch your romantic partner for your friends, and you can't ditch your friends for your romantic partner. There has to be boundaries in place with both, standards with both, and you have to know when to see both of these types of people in a friendship or relationship, right? You can't put one above the other. You need to maintain and sustain your friendship, so that if your romantic relationship goes wrong, or or it's just not fulfilling as many needs as you wish, then you've got some other people around you that can nourish you anyway. You're not going to get all your needs met through your primary romantic relationship. Equally, you can't get all your romantic needs met through a friendship if you're really romantic. Like, I don't kiss my friends. I don't go around cuddling them or kissing them. I don't go around stroking their hair and touching them in a sensual way, like a sensual romantic way. I don't do that. I don't go around stroking their arms and stuff like that. So that's reserved for a romantic relationship. But if I'm not having a romantic relationship, and I might not be for years, if ever, then I personally need to get those needs met, which I choose to do through guys in clubs that I don't really know that well. But I think that's a good thing for me, not a bad thing, because I used to get into relationships with guys who were bad for me before, because I used to think any guy I kissed, I had to be in a relationship with. Whereas now, if I kiss a guy, that's great. Or I had an hour's kissing with him, wonderful. Got my kissing needs met. got to experience a highly aesthetically hot, beautiful guy on my lips, and I had a great sensual romantic time with him. Now I can go back to my own home, he can go back to his, and everything's great, you know? No ties to someone who's bad for me, because in the relationship they're probably going to be bad for me, these guys, most of them, if not all of them, right? And you could argue, well, I even let a bad guy kiss me. Well, one, I don't know if it definitely is bad. Two, if I got the impression he was bad, like as in he's really bad, then I wouldn't even go anywhere near him. If I was uncomfortable and didn't want to kiss him, if I felt something was off with him, I wouldn't, and didn't feel comfortable enough to kiss him, I wouldn't. And three is, well, the majority of guys are not great these days, right? I don't know what these guys are like when I'm kissing them in clubs, totally, because, like, I don't know them. And, like, yes, I might kiss a guy who's not a good guy, but I'm not aware whether he's good or not. So I'm taking that upon myself to allow myself to do that. And I need to get my kissing needs met. And I think it's more healthier for me to be kissing a guy who may not be the right guy for me or a good guy for me than actually kissing a guy and specifically saying you're my guy now, and him being really bad and abusive for me. Whereas if I'm in a club, if he starts not being nice to me, I can just leave. And I have had guys that I've got close to before, and they changed their behavior, or I found out that they were womanizer, and I'm just like, I'm not interested anymore, like, go from my life, and walked off. They don't like it, they hate that, but that's to protect myself. So you can still have boundaries in place and you still have a good time. So I think that movies do influence people's behavior, do influence people's actions, do influence people's minds. If they didn't, I don't think they would produce movies, because movies do affect people's emotions, which affects people's behaviors, and it affects people's thoughts and feelings, right? Everything's connected. So thoughts can influence feelings, can influence emotions, emotions can influence your thoughts, which can influence your actions. So just bear all this in mind and think logically to yourself, think more practically. Like, if you get a romantic relationship, you can't not prioritize them to a certain extent, because they need to be a priority in order to feel wanted, needed, loved, special, adored, and that you genuinely care about them. But at the same time, your friends need to be a priority as well. You have to split your time between them both. You can't expect one to be there and not the other, right? If you are a romantic person, you will hold the romantic person in high regard, because you can't really experience some of those things with your friends that you can experience in a romantic relationship. You can't experience some of the things you experience in a romantic relationship on your own completely. Like, you can love yourself all you want, but if you want a load of kissing and not just on yourself, then you can't get that from just yourself unless you get a kissing device. But it's not an actual person you're kissing, is it? It's the device, right? So there are certain experiences you can have with someone else that you can't have with other people. That's what I'm saying. So each person has its own merits, and each type of relationship has its own merits. I personally don't like sex. I'm not interested in sex. And I do think sex is very much driven by media, by society, by products and advertisements. That's why there's so much sex on TV and in adverts, because if it didn't work, if it didn't influence people, they wouldn't do it. And they just do it more and more and more to influence people. So I think you have to be aware of this, that it's done on purpose and with intent to affect people. So I do think that romantic relationships and sexual relationships are given far more weight and priority on TV and in movies than friendships in general overall. So therefore, I think that does have a bearing on people seeing them as more important than friendships. I want to know what you think, though. What do you think in the comments? Got any queries, questions, please pop them down below. I'm going to sign off for today. I hope you've enjoyed this live stream video. I think you'll have some fine insights and things to think about in it. Don't forget to subscribe and hit the bell icon if you haven't already. Please do that. Share it with anyone who wants to debate these type of things. Thanks to Apache and Liam in chat. I really, really love the fact you're here in chat, and I appreciate you so much for being here. Thanks to everyone who supports this channel. Love you always. I'll see you next time. Don't forget to keep acing your life. Lots of love. Bye.